Welcome everybody to another Directed IRA webinar. My name is Nate Hare, the Vice President of Sales here at Directed IRA and Directed Trust Company. And I'm real excited to get you guys some information today. It's actually one of my favorite topics to talk about when we talk about self-directing retirement accounts, because this is how I self-direct my own retirement account. And I'll tell you why I like this topic of private lending and why it's, so advantageous for anybody that has a retirement account, whether you have an IRA at Fidelity or Charles Schwab, maybe you have a 401k at an old company that you worked at, a 403b, and just understand, what are people using these self-directed IRAs for? How are they investing it into these alternative assets that we'll describe here in a second? Because what you'll find out, and I've seen this through actual IRS audits, the people that are self-directing retirement accounts into alternative assets, over the long run, are making better returns than people that are not. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but I just want to have a little bit of housekeeping, give some time for people to log on. Again, I want to welcome you guys to the Directed IRA webinar. I know that we've got a variety of people that attend our webinars. We've got people that this is their first webinar that they're ever attending because they want a little bit more information about what is a self-directed IRA, how does it work, what are the investments I can invest in, and how does the process work? I think that's the main thing people want to understand. How's it work? How do I do it? How do I take an IRA and invest in real estate through a promissory note or otherwise versus just investing in a stock or a mutual fund? So as we go through the content, which we'll get to here in a second, I want to encourage everybody to ask questions, okay? I've got a moderator in the background, Daniel Tercy, okay? His name, the initials stand for D to Trust, which is perfect for this segment. But he is a senior IRA account executive here, trains with me directly. He can answer questions that you guys have, but type your questions into the Q&A box, okay? That's where he's going to be moderating the most. It's going to be hard for him to see everything in the chat, but I do encourage you guys to use the chat for networking purposes. I know we've got a lot of real estate investors or maybe syndicators that come on and they just want to network and say, hey, I'm Bob in Illinois and I invest in this. If anybody's interested in using their self-directed IRA to invest with me and they're in my neighborhood, let's meet for coffee. So use the chat function for networking. I always encourage that, but then use the Q&A function for your questions, and either Daniel will answer them if they're easy, low-hanging fruit, or if it's a good question to relay to me and it's pertinent to what we're talking about, he'll stop me at any time and get me that question. And then if we don't get to your question, we'll have some contact information and how you can reach us and one of our specialists to answer them, over the phone or through email. So first, some housekeeping. I want to do some announcements really quick. One of the things that we pride ourselves on here at Directed IRA is education. Now, the thing that makes us different in, I would say, the retirement space is we're not a Fidelity or Charles Schwab that we sell investments, okay? We're licensed to hold retirement assets, but we don't sell the assets to you. You have to find the assets, find the investments yourself, and then we go out and buy it with your self-directed retirement account. We'll talk about how that works. Now, one of the questions I get all the time is, Nate, where do I find these investments? How do I find them? I'm not a part of a local RIA. I still work a 9-to-5 job. I want to invest in alternatives. I just don't have access to alternatives. Well, we put together an event that bridges that gap. Okay, and we started this event maybe 3 years ago, I believe. And we started it, and this is our biggest event that we sponsor a year. Okay, this is a Matt Sorensen event, and it's called our Alternative Asset Investor Summit. Now, this summit is geared to anybody that's interested or in the industry of alternative investments. Now, alternative investments span far and wide, from real estate, all types of real estate, land acquisitions, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, long-term rentals, multifamily investments, commercial syndications. It even goes outside of the scope of real estate, oil and gas, mineral rights investments, angel investing, precious metals, gold and silver. This is the event that we host once a year here in Scottsdale. It's going to be at October 16th and 17th. We bring in industry experts from across the country to come and speak about different alternative investments and different alternative investment strategies. Now, the one thing they're not allowed to do, okay, is sell you an investment on stage. So it's not a pitch fest. You're not going to get sold anything. This is strictly for education purposes only. But this event is limited to 300 people. Okay, so it's a paid event, but I do have a promo for you guys. If you're interested in getting out and networking and learning a little bit, there's no better place to do that in October than Scottsdale, Arizona. So that's going to be a 2-day event, October 16th and 17th. If you want to grab tickets, we've got virtual tickets. If you're just lazy, you don't want to get out of the house, but you still want to learn, you can pick up a virtual ticket. Okay, but we also have live tickets. We've got general admission. We have a general admission plus. We've got a VIP ticket. All of those get you different bells and whistles. I would encourage anybody that can make it live. It's just a better experience. I'm not hating on the virtual people. I think virtual is good if that's the only way that you can attend. But if you can come out and be with us, you get to network, you get to be a part of the welcome reception, the evening receptions. It's a really fun event. And I would say, even if you're an expert in the field, you want to build a network. And this is a place to learn and build a network. So, next slide. Here's some of the topics that we're going to discuss. I kind of covered it. Again, we're going to have industry experts that span the globe of alternative investments, all the ones that I mentioned. But we also will provide a lot of education that just goes outside of that scope. Tax advising. We're going to have some tax attorneys. Matt Sorensen, the owner of Directed IRA, and Mark J. Kohler. They'll be there. They'll be providing education. We've got some professionals from KKOS Lawyers. There's going to be a wide scope of education provided to you guys here. And I think for a couple $100, it's going to pay you more in dividends and more in the long run to hear, what are people investing in with a self-directed IRA? What are people investing in general? And then just how do I properly structure myself to create more generational tax-free wealth for myself and my family? So again, October 16th and 17th, Scottsdale, Arizona. You can scan that QR code, and my code, Nate100, gets you $100 off any ticket. So grab them while they're there, because again, once we hit about 300, doors are closed. We've got a limited space, right? So, and again, we want a high pH level of people there. So be one of the first 300 people to get a ticket, and I'm sure that you'll find some use, and you'll find some nuggets to take with you. So, okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the topic of today, which is specifically private lending with a self-directed IRA. Now we'll talk a little bit about real estate as we go through here, but this is, I would say, of all the alternative investments that we see our 25,000 clients make, this is probably one of the top 3 investments that we fund on a daily basis, okay? Most of our clients who are self-directing into alternative investments, as a general rule of thumb, they like to invest in things that are either directly ownership of real estate or things that secure them through real estate. Private money lending has been one of the easiest ones to get into, especially if you're, someone that works a 9-to-5 job and you don't have the time out of your day to go look for a property to own in your retirement account. You don't have time to manage a property owned in your retirement account, which it still could be a great investment, but most people just don't have the time or the access to deals to do it. So even myself, even though I've been in real estate since 2004, I'm actually a residential loan officer, a licensed residential loan officer. I don't go buy real estate myself in my IRA because it's better suited for me to free up my time to do the things that I like to do and just lend money out of my retirement accounts to other full-time real estate professionals that are doing it on a day-to-day basis that deal with all the ownership headaches. And my retirement account is just the funding mechanism. My retirement account is just the bank that receives the interest income from that borrower. And I'll talk about all of the reasons why I like it personally, but why a lot of other people like it as well. So let's jump into it, okay? If you don't know who I am, and this program's not about me, but I'll just kind of tell you my story about how I found self-direction, okay? I got into real estate right out of college. I knew I wanted to get into real estate. I didn't know how it worked really. I got my real estate license. I realized I didn't want to show cupboards and cabinets, but I liked the idea of owning rental property and being a real estate investor. I also like the numbers of real estate, so I got into the mortgage business, okay? Had about an 8-year stint in the mortgage business. I loved it, loved doing it, still love it today. But through that time, I actually started buying my own rental property, okay? Now, I would be the first one to tell you, I thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was very young, right? So I was buying a lot of my investment property through my LLC, right? Making good money, but also paying a lot of taxes on that money as well. In 2012, I was recruited by a self-directed IRA company out of Houston, Texas, who wanted me to come teach people how to do what I was doing in real estate, but do it in an IRA, do it in a retirement account. This was the first time I even heard that was possible. I thought, well, I've got a Northwestern SEP IRA, Northwestern Mutual SEP IRA. It's got a mutual fund in it. Are you telling me that instead of investing in that mutual fund, which I know nothing about, I was just told that that's what I need to invest in, I can take that money and actually buy a rental property instead, or I can take that SEP IRA and do a loan to a real estate investor, which was what I was already doing and making more money on. When I first heard about it, it was a light bulb. Just went off in my head, and I thought, why didn't I know about this earlier? Why don't they teach this in college? Why didn't they teach this in my real estate classes? Nowhere in those first 8 years that I was in the business had I ever even heard the term self-directed. Well, once I started learning about self-directed IRAs and how powerful they were, first I thought, okay, this is the only way that I'm going to get to retirement, is investing in the things that I'm more knowledgeable about and have a little bit more control over. But then I realized there's not a lot of people that even knew this existed. So I had a pendulum shift career-wise, and ever since 2012, I've been teaching investors how to use self-directed IRAs to invest in alternatives, invest in real estate, but just allow people the opportunity to know that it's even out there, that it exists, because I didn't know it existed. And I'm sure that most of you who have learned about it, you probably wish you heard about it 10 years before you did as well. So that's kind of how I stumbled into this, and I find great passion in teaching investors that this is an option to them, teaching people all the creative things that you can do in a self-directed IRA, including lending, and you can even be creative through your lending. I'll talk about that in a second. But that's where I find great passion, and that's why I'm in the business today, to teach you guys about how to use these self-directed IRAs. Now, in that same breath, what I'm not allowed to do from a self-directed IRA custodian standpoint is we're not allowed to tell you what you should or you shouldn't invest in. You see, there's a difference between a company like Directed IRA and a company like Fidelity. Okay? First, there's a similarity between the two. What Fidelity is they're a licensed securities broker. They sell investments, but they're also considered a custodian. Okay? Custodians are licensed to hold retirement assets on behalf of a client. Okay? You have to have a third-party company that holds your retirement assets until you decide to take distributions, and that's when you get your benefit and it becomes your money at that point. But before that point, any retirement account you have is always going to be custodied by a third party. Okay, so Fidelity custodies your retirement accounts to hold stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and what we call traditional investments. Directed IRA, and you can go to the next slide here. Directed IRA, we act as the custodian for private investments, or some people call it alternative investments. See, we hold the same license when it comes to custody. The only thing we don't have is we don't have a license to sell you investments. Okay, that's the big difference. Now, I'm not knocking on Fidelity or Charles Schwab, right? That's the nature of their business. But they're a custodian that sells financial product. So if you have an IRA with Fidelity or you have a 401k at Fidelity, they're only going to hold in that IRA or that 401k the investments they sell you, the investments that are on their menu. When you have an IRA with us, Directed IRA, we don't have a menu of investments. We don't have a single investment to sell you. In fact, our account agreement with you as our client simply states you can invest in anything the IRS allows, but you got to tell us what the investment is. We'll buy it as the custodian of your IRA. We'll tell you what documents we need to buy it, but we're not going to find it and sell it to you. So it is a little bit more of an entrepreneurial type of account, but it can bode very well, very good profits if you have an investment opportunity that fits outside the scope of a traditional investment or an investment that's tied to Wall Street. We handle investments that are more tied to Main Street. When you look at the tax code, the IRS actually doesn't really care what we own in a retirement account. There's only 2 investments on this planet that cannot be owned inside of a retirement account. By IRS tax code, the 2 things are life insurance contracts and collectibles. That's it. Those are the only 2 things that the IRS says cannot be held in a retirement account. So everything else is fair game. Okay, if you want to go back to that slide, Angel, everything else is fair game. As a general rule of thumb, if you can draw up a purchase contract to buy something, your IRA can be the buyer. If you can draw up a contract to hold something, your IRA can be the owner of that contract or the owner of that deed or the owner of that promissory note. You just have to work through the custodian to buy the investment and hold the investment so that it grows tax deferred or tax free. So these are some of the most common investments that we see at directed IRA. I'll say it goes way outside of this, but we see a lot of people take their self-directed IRAs and buy fee simple real estate, right? 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental, right? Small multifamily, a duplex, a fourplex, right? Has to be an investment property, but any real estate investment property can be owned inside of your retirement account, provided you work through your custodian. We also have clients that will own land inside of their IRA, precious metals. Cryptocurrency is a big one, right? And I'm not talking about a crypto ETF. I'm talking about actual Bitcoin, actual Ethereum. That can be owned inside of your retirement account. Now, why is this powerful? Retirement accounts aren't taxpayers. All the gains inside of a retirement account, as long as the investment's in the retirement account, bought by the retirement account and sold by the retirement accounts are tax exempt, okay? There's no tax form that you have to fill out every year when you buy and sell investments inside of an IRA or a 401k. Okay? So the power is when we talk about, real estate or even loans secured by real estate, is all of the income generated from that investment. If it's owned by your IRA doesn't pay taxes. So you can grow wealth exponentially, getting Uncle Sam off of your back, versus you investing with your personal money and paying taxes on every dime that you make. And I would say for anybody that's interested in private lending is probably one that has the biggest pendulum shift when it comes to tax benefits, because there's no tax benefit to loaning a real estate investor $100,000 of my money, because I have to treat that as ordinary income. The interest that borrower pays me, Nate Hare, the taxpayer, I got to report that on my 1040 and I have to pay normal income tax on it. I don't get depreciation as a lender. But in an IRA, I loan money out of my Roth IRA to a real estate investor. I loan money out of my traditional or rollover IRA or my self-directed HSA. All of the interest paid by that borrower, completely tax-free or tax-exempt. So there's a huge pendulum shift tax-wise by private lending, specifically inside of a self-directed IRA. So go back to the slide if you can, Angel. So there's other types of investments that can be held, but we're going to keep it to private money lending for the purposes of this webinar. Now, you're going to hear this term a lot. Okay, you'll even hear me talk about it a lot, but we'll call it self-directed IRA. I want to make this clear, especially to the new people. When I say self-directed is not a type of IRA. It's just a marketing term. Okay, we mentioned if you have an IRA at Fidelity, let's say you've got a Roth IRA at Fidelity. That Roth IRA, by tax law, is no different than the Roth IRA we own here or hold here. The only difference is what you're allowed to hold, but that's based on who the custodian is. But when it comes to a Roth IRA or traditional IRA, it's no different here. We just throw the term self-directed in front of it to let you know you got to self-direct. You got to tell us what the investment is. Okay, and I'll give you some pointers on where you can potentially find some borrowers if you're struggling for access to deals on who to lend to. We'll talk a little about where you can find such deals. But self-directed is just a marketing term. Okay, if you go to the next slide. These are the 6 plans. These are the 6 plans that we have here at Directed IRA that can be, quote, self-directed. Okay, now you'll notice these are the same plans that you open up anywhere else, right? Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, they've got these same plans. We have the same plans. These plans just allow you to invest in alternative assets because we're the custodian. So there's 3 categories of plans that you can open here at Directed IRA and you can self-direct. Okay, personal plans, which would include your traditional IRAs and your Roth IRAs. Now again, most people know this, but those are just taxed differently, right? Traditional IRA, you put money into it, you get a tax deduction. You take the money out, you pay the taxes when you take the money out. Roth IRA, the polar opposite. You make a contribution to a Roth IRA, you don't get the tax deduction. But the biggest trade-off with the Roth IRA, why I will only self-direct a Roth IRA in my lending, is because when I get to the age of 59 and a half, and I've had a Roth for 5 years, every time I take a distribution from my Roth for the rest of my life, I never have to pay taxes again. Okay, that's how the rich get wealthy. It's not about deferring taxes, it's about eliminating taxes. And a Roth IRA allows you to eliminate taxes. Now, the reason why I want to stress the Roth IRA over the traditional IRA is very commonly, and I'll oversimplify this, when you're private lending with an IRA, there's borrowers out there that will pay 8, 10, 12, 14% on money borrowed. If you can make double-digit returns in a tax-free account and take a small amount of money and make it larger through the sweat equity of someone else, do you want to pay taxes on the small bucket or the big bucket? I like to pay taxes on the small bucket versus the big bucket. So one of the things that private lending at least gives to me is the ability to analyze my returns based on the interest rate I'm charging to the borrower. Again, we'll talk about this in a second, but if you can get double-digit returns backed by real estate, I would say make sure those double-digit returns are tax-free, not tax-deferred. But either one can be self-directed. Now, more people have a traditional IRA versus a Roth IRA because most people start a traditional IRA from that old 401k that they had at that job, right? A lot of you might have had a 401k, maybe you have a 401k now. Most 401ks or say 403bs are pre-taxed accounts, and when you leave that employer, those get rolled over into traditional pre-tax IRAs versus Roth IRAs. But I will also tell you, based on new tax law ever since 2010, anybody with a traditional IRA can do what's called a conversion and just convert their traditional IRAs to Roth IRAs by paying the tax. I don't want to get too much into that because we've got some classes and some special education online if you want to get into that, but just food for thought. Anybody, regardless of their income now, can convert existing traditional IRAs to Roth IRAs by simply paying the tax. They used to have an income limit on this back in 2010. If you made $100,000 or more, they didn't even allow you to convert to a Roth. Well, ever since 2010, anybody, regardless of their income, can pay taxes on a traditional to convert it to a Roth. So just planting seeds in your head, just things to think about. Now, if you're self-employed, anybody that has some Schedule C income or maybe some 1099 income, some of my clients have both. They work a 9-to-5 job, but they've got a side hustle. Maybe real estate's their side hustle. They've got a side business. If you have any Schedule C or 1099 income, you can also make contributions and self-direct employer plans like the SEP IRA or the solo 401k. Now these, again, two different pages on the menu. If you've got just Schedule C income, you can actually make contributions to a personal plan and an employer plan. But you have to have Schedule C or 1099 income to make a contribution to an employer plan. The biggest difference between the employer plans and the personal plans is how much you can contribute each year. So if you're looking to put a large amount of money into a plan and get it self-directed, well, your traditional and Roth IRAs, they limit you on how much you can put in each year. Okay, so it makes it a little bit difficult if you're just starting out, but I'll address that misconception here in a second. But when you're talking about contributions, what you take out of your pocket and add, you're limited to $7,000 a year to a personal plan or $8,000 a year if you're over 50. Employer plans, you can go upwards over $80,000 now. Okay, you have to have that amount of income to make that contribution, but it's a larger money dump into an employer plan than a personal plan. The reason why I want to focus on that is a lot of people get contribution and profit mixed up. Okay, contribution is what you add to the account each year. What your borrower pays in interest or what your real estate makes in appreciation or capital gain, that's profit. Profit is unlimited and does not go against your contributions. So again, just pointing out some things to understand. And again, these are all accounts that you can open here at Directed IRA, make a contribution, and self-direct. And then we even have plans that are non-retirement plans that can be self-directed, which can be your self-directed health savings account, or you could set up self-directed Coverdell ESAs for your kids or your grandkids. Now, these work like self-directed IRAs when you make contributions and you invest them, but when you take distributions from these plans, they work a lot differently. When you have a self-directed HSA or self-directed ESA, you don't have to wait until 59 and a half to maximize the tax advantage when you take distributions. HSAs and ESAs, as you invest them and as they realize profit, you could take distributions the day the profit comes in tax-free to pay for your qualified out-of-pocket health expenses for you and your family things like your co-pays, your doctor visits, your acupuncture, your prescriptions, your glasses, your dental work, all the things that you pay for, you reach out of your back pocket to pay for. Maybe start thinking about how you can pay for those expenses with tax-free dollars through your HSA investing. And then the same thing goes for self-directed ESA. Now, these are set up for beneficiaries as your kids or grandkids, but these are accounts that work like 529 plans, but they're the only education accounts that can be self-directed into real estate and lending. So as the investments in a self-directed ESA realize profit, you can take that profit out tax-free as the parent or the grandparent and use that money free of tax to pay for education expenses for that designated beneficiary of the child. So things like tuition, tutoring, books, computers, iPads, even your home internet bill is a qualified education expense. As long as your kids do homework online, you can pay your internet for the home with tax-free dollars from your child's ESA investments. I mean, it's really powerful stuff. So when you back up and you look at these plans airplane view, all of these plans fit different purposes. All of these plans are in different categories. So I always suggest to people, I haven't met many people that only need one of these accounts. Most people need multiple. So let's say you've got you and a spouse and you've got 2 kids. Okay, I would probably make an argument that you and your spouse both need Roth IRAs. Okay, because you can make contributions and max out both contributions there. Getting 2 accounts working together is better than just getting 1 account working. If you've got some self-employment income, you should be making contributions and maxing out your employer plans. If you've got a high deductible health plan that allows you to have an HSA, you should be making contributions to that. And then if you've got 2 kids under the age of 18, you should be making contributions to those too, because they're all plans that can be self-directed individually or together. And I'll show you that in the first case study, how I partner my Roth IRA and my HSA on loans to investors. But provided you're getting more accounts working, okay, in combination with each other, now you've got different uses of that money, right? The profit coming back to your retirement accounts is for later. The profit coming back to your HSAs and your ESAs, that's money you can use today to pay today expenses. So this is why this is so powerful, and this is why I think they should teach this to us in school.
Hey, Nate.
Yep.
I was going to wait a little bit longer because I know you touch on this stuff, but I've had multiple questions regarding depreciation.
Yep.
And how it benefits you even though you're not paying any taxes inside your IRA. So maybe you can answer that.
Okay, so we're getting a little bit off topic, but because it's not a lending depreciation, we don't usually talk about it in lending, but we're talking about it in real estate. And this is one of the greatest things that I love about self-direction and even for me, I was, quote, in the box hearing from my CPA that, you should only buy real estate outside of an IRA because you get depreciation. Okay, now what's depreciation? It's just a tax credit that you get when you buy real estate or investment property that helps you offset your income as an individual or offset your taxes as an individual. Now, first thing I'll say to that is there's only a certain type of income that can be offset. You can't offset W-2 income with depreciation. Okay, so, but when CPAs tell me that or that's brought up, it's very in the box, because if you think about it, you're only buying real estate at that point to get depreciation to offset your taxes. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't buy real estate outside of an IRA. You should. But for the people that think, well, why would you buy real estate inside of an IRA if you lose the depreciation? I lose the depreciation because an IRA is not a taxpayer. It's a moot point. If my IRA buys a rental property and sells it and makes $100,000, there's no tax to depreciate against. So I don't need depreciation when there's no taxes. I'd rather have no taxes than some taxes that I got to offset. So I would say my most successful investors who are investing in real estate, they have real estate outside of their IRA enough to use the depreciation to offset their income, but they also have real estate inside of an IRA that grows tax-free that they don't worry about the depreciation at all because it's never taxed to begin with. So hope that answers the question, Daniel. Was there another question on that or on anything else?
No, that was it. I do have quite a few questions coming up regarding private money lending, but I kind of want to let you get into it and
Sure.
then I'll chime in.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Daniel.
Yep.
Okay, so
just let everybody know.
Yep. So let's just talk about the benefits of lending. Again, these are just my benefits. Again, you can add some or subtract some if you like. But the one thing that I like about lending money out of my IRA is really what you're doing in a sense is you're putting your IRA in the position of a bank. Okay. If you think about it, banks are in the business to loan, not own. Banks do not want property, but I guess tell you what, banks are the biggest players in the lending space, and they love having their money tied to real estate with borrowers that have a vested interest to pay, or else they lose the house because they get passive income and the bank doesn't have to deal with toilets or tenants if it's an investment property. That's the same reason I like lending out of an IRA. Because could I go out and find a property that my IRA owns and own it as a rental? Sure, but then I got to get a property manager in place. I've got to do all sorts of things when it comes to ownership of real estate, and I'm not calling that a bad investment. Sometimes I just don't want to deal with all that headache. When I go out and I speak at RIAs across the nation, I run into real estate investors that are full-time real estate investors that, first of all, they'll find better deals than I would, okay? I'm just not equipped to go out and find deals because I'm working here. I'm presenting here to you guys. But I have enough connections now that I know a handful of people, okay, that have scalable businesses, and they are full-time real estate investors. They spend every waking hour looking for deals, sending yellow letters, finding properties at a discount, finding owners of vacant properties. They are doing all the work that I don't have the time to do. But that doesn't mean I don't get to make money inside of my retirement account, because those people also need funding for their deals. And to be frank, most real estate investors will tell you it's not advantageous for them to go get a loan from Wells Fargo or Bank of America for every investment property that they buy. Because what happens? Well, Bank of America or Wells Fargo, they want 30% down, they want a good FICO score, and you're limited to about 10 properties that you can finance through conventional financing. So real estate investors, good full-time real estate investors, are always looking for opportunities to borrow money outside of conventional financing. Now, the other way that a real estate investor can go get financing is through a hard money lender. Now, hard money lenders are great, but hard money lenders are also expensive. Okay, you can probably get a 7% rate from a conventional bank, but they want 30% down. But as a real estate investor, if I don't have 30% down, I can look to a hard money lender. They might loan me 100% of the deal if it's a good deal, but they're going to charge me 14 to 18%. So it's more expensive to me as an investor looking to borrow money to buy property. Private lenders sit really kind of right dead center. I kind of mentioned, I would say the average going rate for a private lender is the ability to charge between 8, 10, and 12%. So my IRA, my Roth IRA, my HSA, and whatever accounts I can demand from a borrower that they pay me 10%. And that's a better deal in a lot of cases than they'll get at a conventional bank or through a hard money lender. But for me, it's passive. I don't have to deal with all the toilets and the tenants. They handle all the issues. They just pay my IRA's monthly interest, and now my IRA is the bank. So that's why I like it first, is for the passive aspect of lending. The other thing it allows you to do is, again, any self-directed IRA, I would say, allows you to have better diversification than just having all of your assets tied to Wall Street. Okay, I think there's a lot of risks involved there. Most of the investments are speculative. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in that field, but I will tell you, and I've seen the audits from the IRS, and it might be shocking for you guys to hear this, the people that have alternative assets inside of their retirement account that really get true diversification, they invest in stocks, but they also invest in alternatives. Those are the people that have the larger IRAs. It's in audits, right? The IRS has audited people, and 25% of the assets inside every IRA above $5 million, 25% of the assets are alternative assets, okay? $5 million IRAs and up, 25% of the assets are alternatives. Guess what the percentage of alternative assets are in everything under 5 million? 3%, okay? So that tells you the ability to diversify outside of Wall Street and invest in Main Street can bode better returns, provided you're picking good investments. So the ability to have a self-directed IRA just gets you better diversification than just diversifying amongst some mutual funds. We talked about the tax savings, right? If I'm going to be a lender, I pay taxes as an individual if I lend my money out of my bank account. I lend money out of my IRA. All of the income that comes back to my IRA is completely tax exempt. So there's a huge pendulum shift between lending personal money in my bank account and lending money out of my retirement account. And if I'm using the accounts that also give me tax-free distributions, like a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, or the HSA and the ESA I mentioned, I mean, that's where the rich get wealthy, is just by having cash flowing investments, right? Even if it's interest income, but having the distributions from those plans feed their needs, right? But with tax-free distributions for the rest of their life. And here's the thing I love about lending. It's predictable, okay? When you are structuring a loan where your IRAs are going to be the lender, okay? And we'll talk about the process here. Ultimately, what your IRA owns is a promissory note. Think about it. When you buy stock at Fidelity, right, your IRA owns a stock certificate. What we own and we hold here of evidence of your investment, if you're a lender, is the promissory note. The promissory note has terms. Okay, the terms are what you, as the IRA's fiduciary, and your borrower agree upon. Okay, those terms can be what the loan amount is, what's the maturity date of the loan, meaning when does the borrower have to pay back all the principal and interest, but then you also get to dictate what the interest rate is. So if I negotiate a loan out of my Roth IRA to a real estate investor who's flipping a property, and let's say in the terms of my note, okay, the borrower has to make monthly payments to my Roth, and they have to make interest payments based on 12%. I know exactly what my account is going to earn on a monthly basis and an annual basis. And what happens if the borrower misses a payment, okay, or fails to pay or cannot pay? Do I lose all my money? No. If I structure it right, I have collateral, which is the property. And that's why banks like to loan, not own. So it's predictable in the sense I know what the interest is because I negotiated it and it's right there on the promissory note. And if I don't get it, I get the house. So that allows me to sleep at night. But most importantly, it just allows you to invest, I say, back into your community, help a local real estate investor out, right? There's a lot of other intangibles, I think, with self-directing through promissory notes that we won't get into today. Okay. Any other questions, Daniel, before I get into the nitty gritty?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to stop. So actually, I have quite a few. So I'm trying to think of what would be good right here. I've been holding off on so many.
Yep.
How about this? What happens if I loan a $25,000 note to a friend on a promissory note, and the property they work on has a big issue and they can't pay me back? What is the paperwork needed if the interest can't be paid back or even the principal? And I have quite a few questions that kind of go over all of that.
Hold that thought, because as soon as we talk about who you can and can't loan to, I'm going to talk about foreclosure. Okay. I'm going to talk about that. That's coming up in this next slide. But great question. Okay. You're on the same wavelength. Okay. So we talked earlier in the program that the IRS doesn't really care about what we invest in or what we hold in a retirement account. But by tax law, they do really care about who your IRA transacts with. And this is the biggest thing that we talk about at Directed IRA. Now, these are the same rules that you have at Fidelity and Charles Schwab. They just don't ever have to explain these rules because you're only buying and selling or transacting with Wall Street, right? Or financial products that are sold through Wall Street, okay? Publicly traded investments. When you deal with alternative investments, you're dealing with private investments and people, right? Not Wall Street, people. So in the tax law, there are certain people your IRA cannot transact with. And in this segment, there are certain people your IRA cannot make loans to. Okay, it's a small list of people, but it's very important to understand this rule before you open an account. Okay, first, understand that you and your IRA are two separate beings. You are two separate entities. Okay, you are a tax-paying, living, breathing individual. Your IRA is a tax-exempt trust. Your role to your IRA is you're just the fiduciary to the IRA, but it's a separate entity, okay? As the fiduciary, you make contributions, but once the money's in the IRA, the money is owned by the IRA. Once that IRA deploys that money and makes an investment, the IRA owns the investment. Now you get your benefit as the fiduciary to when you decide to take distributions from the IRA and remove money or remove assets from the IRA. That's when it becomes your money. That's when it becomes yours. But you have to remember, you are the fiduciary to your IRA. Now, what does that mean? As a fiduciary, your role to your IRA is to make it grow, and all of the investments in the IRA must only benefit the IRA. Okay, I buy a rental property in the IRA, the rents come to the IRA. They don't come to me. Okay, I could take a distribution of the rents once it hits the IRA, but all of the investment income has to benefit the IRA first. Okay, same thing goes with promissory notes or private lending. I loan money out of my Roth IRA to borrower Bob. Borrower Bob pays my Roth IRA. I don't pay any taxes as the money comes in, okay? And then I get my distributions when I request a distribution from my custodian. But that's your role to your IRA. So as a fiduciary, it's important to know there's other fiduciaries, okay? And by tax law, the other fiduciaries, if you think about it, they're people that line up in your way of inheritance, okay? If you die, who do your assets normally go to? They would normally go to your spouse or down to your kids. So in the tax law, okay, the fiduciaries to your IRA are also considered the disqualified people to your IRA. Very important. Disqualified people are not allowed to transact with the person's IRA. So if we're talking about my IRA, the people my Roth IRA cannot make loans to, I cannot tell my Roth IRA to make a loan to myself. It's a conflict of interest, right? Who's going to tell my IRA no? I'm not going to tell it no. So the IRS doesn't want self-dealing. They don't want you loaning money out of your IRA to yourself. They also don't want you loaning money to people in your inheritance, right? They don't want you loaning money out of your IRA to your spouse, to your kids' spouses, or your parents and grandparents. So it's a specific list of family members. Me, my spouse, my parents, my grandparents, or we call them lineal ascendants, my lineal descendants, which are my kids and my grandkids, and their spouses, and any companies those same family members own or control. So just because you have an LLC doesn't mean that that's a qualified person you can make a loan to. It's just an extension of yourself. Okay, so me, spouse, up the line, down the line, and their spouses. Those are the people your IRA cannot make loans to. Now you might have noticed I left some family members off the list. Brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. In the IRA world, those are family to the side. You don't normally leave all your wealth to your brother instead of your wife. If you leave everything to your brother, your wife will dig you out of the grave and kill you again a second time if you do that. So they're not worried so much about family to the side. So let's say your brother Bob is a real estate investor. Your Roth IRA can make a loan to your brother. It just can't make a loan to your son. Okay? Or anybody can receive a loan from your IRA as long as they're not considered a disqualified person. If you've got questions on that, book a call with us, or my team will talk to you. They'll kind of walk you through the process, but just understand who you're not allowed to make loans to, right? So those disqualified people that we mentioned, they're not allowed to transact with the IRA in any way. Okay? Can't loan money out of your IRA to you or any other disqualified person, but the power in these retirement accounts is the investments you make to non-disqualified people who pay your IRA through interest or otherwise, and then you just live tax-free off of the distributions from there, okay? So that's a general rule of thumb on how disqualified people work. Now let's talk about just some considerations of being a lender. Now I'm going to kind of race through this, okay? But these are just some of the considerations that I like to think about before I decide to deploy money out of my retirement accounts to a borrower that might be buying real estate. Number one consideration before you loan any money out of your retirement account, realize if you structure the loan properly, meaning you've got a promissory note, it's drafted by a professional, maybe an attorney or a title company, and you close at a title company, your loan is going to be secured by the property. Now, the property could be land, it could be a 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental, it could be a small multifamily, it could be a large commercial property. But before you make a loan, remember, that's the collateral. In the event the borrower cannot make payments, you do get the property, your IRA gets the property. But do you know what to do with the property if that happens? So for example, I loan very specifically investment property, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. I keep it very simple, investment property. Now, I won't make a loan on a commercial property because at the end of the day, I don't want to have to deal with a commercial property if the borrower doesn't pay my IRA. Okay, it's just not something that I'm fit to do. Okay, maybe some of you are fit to do that. But before you loan any money, realize the asset might be yours or might be owned by your IRA. So just make sure it's an asset that you're going to be happy with at the end of the day in the event that your borrower can't pay or they die or they get sick. Okay. Do not loan money to people you would be uncomfortable foreclosing on. This gets to not the disqualified people because you just can't do it to them, but those family members to the side. Be careful. It's just something to think about. If you make a loan from your Roth IRA, your self-directed Roth IRA to your brother, and then your brother can't make payments, and you have to foreclose on your brother, is Thanksgiving going to be awkward, right? ask yourself those questions before you make a loan to a family member, right? Maybe you keep your IRA's business to people that are not related to you or not close to you, or I would say people that you're not afraid to foreclose on. Anybody that I'm making a loan to out of my IRA, they know that the first thing is if they miss a payment, okay, I'm going to start the foreclosure process. That's just the way it is. But if it's family, I don't want to put myself in that position where I'm going to feel uncomfortable foreclosing on the borrower that I deployed funds out of my self-directed IRA. Number 3, okay, hire professionals to help you evaluate your deals, especially if you're new. Okay, the one thing that we are not allowed to do here at Directed IRA is we cannot tell you whether your loan is a good loan or a bad loan. Okay, we could tell you the things we need in the promissory note, but as far as whether it's a good deal or a bad deal, that's not our job as a passive self-directed IRA custodian. So if you're not equipped to evaluate your own deals, just hire professionals to help you do it, right? Get a local real estate investor or a local realtor that maybe can help you run comps, right? Run comparables before you make a loan on a property. Maybe you tie yourself into some investment professionals that can help you identify or evaluate your deals until you become comfortable evaluating them on your own. And again, shameless plug, you want to run into more investment professionals, come to our our alternative asset investor summit. You're going to meet a lot of them there. So don't be scared to hire professionals to help you evaluate your deals, especially if you're just starting out. Okay. Now, when you're negotiating terms between yourself, representing your IRA, and the borrower, you're free to set your own loan terms. This is one of the beautiful parts about lending money out of an IRA. But in that same breath, think about how you want to be able to structure those deals. So there's really a couple different things that you're going to always have in a promissory note that lays out the terms. One, you're going to have who's the lender, who's the borrower. Okay, lender's your IRA, borrower is borrower Bob. You're going to have a loan amount. Okay, you might have a funding date. You're also going to have, very important, you're going to have a payment schedule, or you're going to have clear terms as to what the interest is that you're charging the borrower and when they're supposed to make payments. Okay. Now, I've seen loans go bad, okay, from clients that really felt good about a deal or felt good about a borrower. And let's say they structured the note as a 2-year note at 12%, but they said, you know what, just pay me all the principal and interest after the loan is matures, right? So I don't need any monthly payments. Just pay me what, at the end of 2 years, which is fine. You can structure it that way. But what if as soon as you close, the borrower disappears, right? The collateral is the property. The note is the terms that signify whether the borrower is performing or not performing. If you haven't told them that they need to make monthly payments, that loan is not in default. If they haven't missed a payment, there's no way that you can foreclose on that property. It's very hard to foreclose on a property if the borrower doesn't miss a payment. So be careful. I always structure my notes so that the borrower will begin paying interest monthly at some point in the near future. Now, maybe it's the next month, or maybe, and again, this is just how you could structure your deal. I've done deals where I loan it to a real estate flipper, and it's kind of a onerous rehab when I look at it, and I know that it's going to take them a lot of sweat and pain, and before they get it marketed to sell, right, there's a lot of work to be done on this property. Now, as a lender, I also don't want to kill my borrower with the pain of the payment. Okay, so if it's a deal where I know that the borrower's got put a lot of sweat equity into this deal before they can even get it closed, maybe in the terms of the note, I structure it to where they have no interest payments for the first 6 months. But I'm not going longer than that, right? 6 months gives them enough time to use my money, fix the property up, flip it, and then hopefully sell it, or they'll at least have to start making me payments from month 6 on. But I'm not going to go 2 or 5 years without requesting a payment, because that's just dangerous for me as using my IRA as a lender. So just be careful how you structure your note deals, okay? When you're talking about large rehabs, be careful if you're agreeing to pay for the rehab as well as the acquisition. Be careful how much you front at closing. Okay, so let's just give an example. Let's say I'm going to loan $100,000 to a borrower, $75,000 to buy it, $25,000 to rehab it. Okay, if I loan them the $75,000 at closing, okay, they can acquire it. If I loan them all $25,000 at closing too to rehab it, well, first they haven't even started the rehab. Okay, so I'm really banking on them to start it, first of all, but also complete it. What happens if my borrower dies? Okay, the day after closing, which can happen, my borrower dies. Well, I've already deployed $100,000 out of my IRA. So I can foreclose on that property, but guess what still needs to be paid for? The rehab. So I got to put another $25,000 in to a contractor to do the rehab. Now I'm in it for 125 instead of 100, and I might lose money on that deal. So be careful how much you front out of your IRA for the rehab. There's different ways you can do this. You can use the escrow company, set up an escrow account, maybe dump the $25,000. You can instruct us to do this. Dump the $25,000 in an escrow account and let them make partial payments to the borrower so that they can do the rehab. Or often what I will do is I will tell the borrower to do the rehab first, start it, and then we'll work on draws. If they want to send me an invoice on what's completed with pictures, then I'll pay them out of my IRA for the work that's already completed. Okay, so just think about that. Be careful how much you deploy without actually seeing that any work is done. Okay, very, very important. No Starbucks closings, guys. If you're going to have a loan secured by real estate and your IRA is the lender, make sure you guys close at a title company. Make sure that the deed of trust that you get that circumvents the court system that allows you to foreclose, make sure that's handled by a title company or an attorney's office. Okay, there's nothing worse than loaning on a piece of property and not ensuring that your money is tied to the property, because when they don't pay you and you find out, oh no, they never recorded the deed. What do I do now? Well, now you got to go to court. Okay, so just pay the extra money, get the title insurance. Again, this is how normal closings work when you borrow money from Bank of America. So don't do it any different if you're going to use your IRA as the bank. Close at a title company, close with an attorney. Okay. Make sure your IRA, now this is what banks do. Okay, if your IRA is going to be the lender to a borrower, make sure that that borrower also makes sure that the homeowner's insurance lists your IRA as the mortgagee or the lender. Okay, this is a policy that we had in the lending business, that we had to get an insurance binder that showed our bank was listed as the lender on the insurance policy, okay, or the mortgage binder or the insurance binder. What this does is it ensures that if the house burns down and the insurance company has to come in, they know there's a lender involved that needs to get a check. Okay, if you don't make sure and the borrower is just on the insurance while the house burns down, they're going to get all the money, right, from the insurance company. You got to hope that they pay your IRA at that point. Don't hope. Just make sure your IRA is listed as the lender on any insurance policies or insurance binders. Okay? Always make sure, as the lender, make sure property taxes are paid on the property. Okay? Your borrower can be paying you on time every single month, and you could just be thinking, oh, this is a great deal. They're paying me on time every time. But if they're not paying the property taxes, the county assessor can come take that property from you and your IRA, or from your IRA and the borrower. So pretty easy way to do this nowadays, right? Every county assessor, you can just log on, type in or search the county, type in the address, and see if property taxes are current. Okay, or have the borrower show you proof that they're making the property tax payments. But as a lender, make sure you're on the insurance binder, your IRA is on the insurance binder, and make sure property taxes are current. Okay. If you're loaning to an entity, a lot of real estate investors will use an LLC, right? They don't buy it personally in their personal name. I would probably ask for a personal guarantee, meaning if I loan this to your LLC and you end up going in default, I don't want this LLC to go poof, be gone. I want you to give me a personal guarantee that you're going to pay back my IRA. Again, that's just an added bonus if you're loaning to an entity. Sometimes, and most borrowers that have scalable businesses, they will have no problem signing a personal guarantee if you're loaning to an LLC or loaning to their entity. And if the loan goes into default, very important, as soon as your borrower misses a payment, okay, in most states, what you're allowed to do is send a notice of default. Okay, this is where we get into the foreclosure process. Okay, now I'm just going to breeze over the foreclosure process. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but what I want to mention on the foreclosure process is that every state has a different foreclosure process. You want to understand the foreclosure process in the state that the property resides in, not the state you live in. Where is the property? Okay. I like to loan in Texas. I'll just tell you that. Okay. I like to loan in Texas because I understand the foreclosure laws in Texas. I lived there for 9 years. Also, ask any real estate professional, Texas is one of the easiest states to foreclose if you are a lender on investment property. Okay. If my borrower doesn't pay me back and that property is in Texas, I can start the foreclosure process day 5 that they miss a payment, and I can actually have that property owned inside of my IRA within about 60 to 90 days. That's extremely fast, and that's important to me as a lender, that I'm not tied to this property for a long period of time. If you look at other states like California or New York, sometimes the foreclosure process takes 2 years to get through, and I just don't want to deal with that. So that's not political. That's just, if I'm going to lend my money out of my retirement account, I don't want to deal with big headaches with my IRA as the lender. I want to deal in states that make it easy for me to get the property. So you got to ask yourself, is that state a judicial foreclosure state or a non-judicial foreclosure state? Okay. What are the types of documents that secure my money to the property? Is it a mortgage? Is it a deed of trust? You don't have to be experts in this, right? We'll send you the recording. You can look back at this, but these are the things you want to ask yourself, or at least understand about the foreclosure process. And the thing I want to mention about foreclosure, this is not a bad thing. This is a good thing, because this is how we collateralize our money. But you need to understand what happens in the event your borrower dies or gets sick, and how that payment works. Now I'm going to flip gears for a second. Borrowers, people that are borrowing money from the self-directed IRA investors, you need to be telling people how this works. Don't count on them to go figure this out on themselves. If you're the real estate professional, you should hit this topic head on. And I guarantee you will get more money loaned to you if you're transparent about what happens if you die. Okay, so make sure you're transparent with your lenders, and I guarantee you'll have more people that want to lend to you. And the first thing you address is, here's how you get this property back if I go missing or if I die tomorrow. Okay, so just understand the foreclosure process in your state. Okay.
Hey, Nate.
Yep, go ahead.
I have a question that's specifically asking about your example.
Okay.
They ask, do you only lend when you're only the loan holder? How does this work if you're second or third position? Does this example only work at close, or can the loan go right to the LLC of the owner who bought the property? There's a personal guarantee. Is the only way to get money court?
So, well, depends on the personal guarantee is a little bit different. I'm not going to get into that, but I'll address the first lien, second lien, third lien position. So there's different lien positions on property. Okay, most of you guys understand this. The first lien position is usually the person that loans money first to buy the property. Now, every once in a while, a real estate investor might need more money to finish a rehab. So they might have to go raise some money from another self-directed IRA investor. And that new self-directed IRA investor, who's maybe just lending money to finish the rehab, they're going to be in second lien position. And you can be third lien and fourth lien. I like to be first lien. I'm not saying I would be against being second lien. I'm probably not going to ever do something where I'm third or fourth lien. It's just too much headache for me. But if you're a second lien holder and you're not receiving payments from the borrower, and let's say the first lien holder is, you could still file for the foreclosure. You could still start the foreclosure process. The only problem is you got to deal with the first lien holder first. You got to communicate with them as to, if you're going to take this property back, guess what the first lien holder is going to want? They're going to want their payoff. So it makes it just a little bit harder to foreclose if you're not getting paid as the second lien holder, but the first lien holder is. And then in reverse, if the first lien holder is not getting the payments, but you are, well, the first lien holder doesn't have to talk to you about the foreclosure. They can foreclose on the property, and you just got to hope that they sell the property for enough money to make you whole too, because they're going to take their money back first, and whatever's left will be paid to you. So I'm not saying it's bad. There's a lot of people that actually make a good amount of money as being second lien holders. I will say this, as a second lien holder, you're probably going to want to demand a higher interest rate than 8-9%. Okay, most second lien holders charge a higher percentage because it's a little bit more risky. Okay, any other questions on that?
Nope.
Daniel? Okay. All right. So I want to get to one case study, but if you guys have to hop off, I want to encourage you guys to set up a call and book a call with one of my IRA account executives. You can actually get Daniel's information in the chat if you need it. Okay, but if you just want to book a call for a later date with anybody on our team, we've got about 6 qualified IRA specialists. Scan that QR code in any account that you decide to open, whether it's a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, an HSA, a 401k, or an ESA. You get $150 off every account you set up if you use that code NATE150. Okay, so for those of you who have to hop off, use that. But I'm going to go into our case studies for those of you who have a little bit more time to stick around. I got about 10 more minutes. Okay, so let's talk about case study number 1. I kind of mentioned the terms of this one, but this is one that I did with my Roth IRA, and my HSA as the lien holders. Okay, one lien, two IRAs. So here's the basics of this deal. I kind of rounded the numbers just to make it easy. Real estate investor found a property in Houston, rough area town. The property was vacant for 2 years. They found the homeowner, had inherited it, just found out that they had the property. Their grandfather left it to them, and they were in need of some money. So this was a motivated seller, right, that the real estate investor found. And this property actually appraised for a lot more than what he offered to the owner. Okay. So basically, long story short, the investor on this, the real estate investor, could pick this property up for $100,000, but the ARV, the after repaired value, was $215,000. So how this investment started is the real estate investor reached out to me and said, Nate, I've got this deal. It's a hot one. I want to give this kid some money before he finds out how much this property is really worth. And I don't have time to go through a bank. I also don't want to go through a bank because they might not even lend me money on the property based on the property's condition. I also know my hard money lender is a little bit backed up. It's the end of the month, so it's going to take them 2 to 3 weeks to fund this, right? But I know that you can deploy money out of your IRA in 3 days because Directed IRA works that fast. So there was a lot of reasons he came to me to borrow the money out of my HSA and my Roth IRA to buy this property, rehab it, and then just flip it. So he needed $75,000 to buy it, and then $25,000 estimated to rehab it. Okay, so we immediately structured terms. Okay, we've already done deals before, so it was pretty easy. He was already okay paying 12%. Okay, now what I usually do, this is just me, I loan money on 6 to 18 month terms. Okay, why do I loan money so short? Well, perfect example here. He didn't need my money for longer than that. He's buying it, he's rehabbing it, he's flipping it, and then he's on to the next deal. I don't need to give this person a 30-year mortgage, nor do they want to be married to my rate at 12% for 30 years. So there's a mutual benefit to get in and out of this deal. I also only loan on investment property. Okay, I didn't address this early, but I only loan on investment property. Had this borrower said, oh, this is the property I'm living in, I'm not the lender for you. Why? I don't want to foreclose on somebody's house that's their primary residence. Where are they going to go? If this person buys the property and then they can't pay me, well, I have a rental property now that I can just rent out. I also don't have to abide by Dodd-Frank law. I'm not going to get into that, but Dodd-Frank are laws that you have to really understand if you're loaning to people that are buying their primary residence on investment properties. Dodd-Frank doesn't apply. Okay, so I like loaning on investment property. I also like loaning short term. The other reason I like loaning short term is, think about it. I'm getting 12% interest within 6 to 18 months. When the borrower does what he needs to do, sell the property, or he decides to keep it as a rental and refinance my loan through a conventional bank, my IRA is made whole. Now I can redeploy not just the principal, but the interest that I made at the same time into the next deal. So if they have the ability to make 12 to 14%, because I also charge 2 points up front. If my Roth IRA and my HSA can make 14% and compound annually, that's better than any investment that I can find on the planet, right? So I like to compound my interest by doing short-term notes. Again, everybody's different, but that's what I like to do. So again, we agreed to a 14% interest, 12% annually, 2% paid at closing. Okay, and here's how the note was structured. Okay, I use my lender's attorney. Okay, my lender's attorney uses 2 lenders on the note. This is not 2 loans. This is 1 loan, and it's just considered a fractionalized note. Okay, it's a fractionalized with 2 IRAs. My Roth IRA that put up $75,000. So my Roth IRA owned an undivided interest of this note of 75%. Okay, that's important because if I partner different accounts together, I have to make sure that when the borrower makes payments back to my accounts, the payments are split based on the ownership percentages. And the ownership percentages are pro rata based on how much each account put in. Okay, I've done notes with 14 IRAs before. I'm not suggesting that you should do that, but I typically will redeploy my Roth and my HSA, right? And it's usually about 75-25. So 25,000 came from my HSA. Now, the reason why that's important to me is, remember, my Roth distributions and my HSA distributions work differently. My Roth distributions are not tax-free to me until I turn 59 and a half. My HSA distributions are free the day it makes it, right? So when I deploy money in one note, one wire from Directed IRA, I've got a payment coming from the borrower, one payment, that's split 75-25 amongst my two accounts. Okay. So once we had the note drafted, here's what I give to directed IRA. Okay. We need two things to deploy your money on a promissory note. We need what's called our direction of investment form, which you can find in your Directed Connect portal or online, right? You fill out our direction of investment form for a promissory note. It's a real simple, easy fill in the blank note. Who's the borrower, right? What are the wiring instructions? How much are we lending? Are we holding back money for rehab, right? You fill out that form. That's your instruction as the client that we're going to deploy money on a promissory note. And then we also need a copy of the promissory note. Okay, once we have those two items and we have wiring instructions to the title company, we can fund that deal in 3 business days. So we literally closed this deal in 3 business days. Once I had the note drafted, once the borrower signed the note, and I gave my direction investment form to Directed IRA, that went out in 3 days. Borrowers, will that help you buy more property if you can close cash deals in 3 days? Yes. So if you have self-directed IRA investors that have an account open and set up and funded, you can literally buy property in less than a week, but you got to have those relationships set up. Okay. So that's one of the advantages of using private money, especially if you're a real estate investor. You can close fast, and you're not closing with your money. You're closing with somebody else's money. Now, once we close at the title company, very important, Directed IRA holds 2 documents in our safe that shows what my IRA owns. They hold the promissory note that shows the terms of the note, and then they also hold the deed of trust. Since this was in Texas, they're a deed of trust state, and the deed of trust is an important document to me because the deed of trust allows me in a non-judicial state that if the borrower doesn't make a payment, I don't have to take them to court to foreclose. Okay, the deed of trust allows my IRA or whoever the lender is to circumvent the courts and take the property without going through a lengthy court process. Very important. So that goes back to what states do you want to lend in? Do you want to lend in states that have long judicial processes, or do you want to lend in states that have short judicial and easy judicial processes? So at the end of the day, I don't want the property. I just want the payments. So long story short, he paid on time every time. There was $100,000 of equity at stake. He was never late on a payment. He actually paid early in most cases. But all of those payments that he made came right to Directed IRA, split amongst my tax-free accounts that continue to compound and grow tax-free for the rest of my life. Okay. So ask yourself the question, if you run the numbers, if you could compound interest in a tax-free account, and let's say you can earn 14% annually compounded, you could have a $100,000 IRA become a $1.4 million IRA without making a single contribution, without working or adding more money to the account, and without doing a single thing on the properties, hopefully, because you've got good borrowers that are doing all the work and all the sweat equity for you. So does self-directed IRA bode good profits if you do it right, even if you're the lender and you're not the owner? Yes. This is why so many people like to just lend versus own inside the retirement account. And again, if you're compounding your interest or you're structuring your notes to get paid off early, well, then it allows you to compound interest more efficiently, I think. Daniel, any questions on that?
Yes, I think this is a decent one. So this person asks how that worked with 14 fractional notes. Did the 14 own a joint LLC for
No.
one place for payment?
Nope.
Maybe elaborate just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just
on that. On like, yeah.
just take. I mean, that same example, right? 2 IRAs. He doesn't have to make 2 payments. He just makes a check payable to Directed Trust Company, FBO Nate Hare. Now, because there's multiple IRAs, he'll probably put in the ACH instructions or the note section of the check, right, what the property is. That way, Directed IRA's deposit team can look at it and go, okay, this check is for this asset, and we're going to split this check 75-25 because that's how it's owned in our system. You throw 14 IRAs in there, it's still one check, and then Directed IRA just has to split the check 14 different ways based on how much each account put in there. I will say I've had a couple circumstances where I had a client that wanted to partner 7 IRAs with us, and they had an 8th IRA at another self-directed IRA company. I won't name them, but it was a different self-directed IRA company. Now, what made that hard is you can't send one check to us and we split it 8 ways and send another check to another company. So the borrower actually had to pay one payment to us and then send one small payment to another company. If you're going to do that, you're just making it hard on the borrower at that point. So after their next deal, they actually moved that IRA from that custodian and just had it all here. But if you do have money coming from different places, even personal money, I would say you could set up a joint LLC. We have a law firm, KKOS Lawyers, that will do it for you. So let's say that I've got money in my Roth IRA, and maybe my brother has some personal money that he wants to loan. Okay, or actually, let's just make it my personal money. Okay, could I partner $50,000 out of my bank account with $50,000 from my IRA, and me and IRA be the lender? Sure, I can. I got to make sure that the payments are split 50-50. But if I'm partnered personally outside of my IRA, I cannot tell the borrower to make one check to Directed IRA and expect Directed IRA to cut me personally a check. Directed IRA can only give me distributions. So if I don't want it counted as a distribution, what I have to do, if I'm just partnered on the note, Nate Hare and Nate Hare's Roth, I got to tell the borrower to make 2 payments. So if I want to make it easy on the borrower, I can first just set up an LLC that's owned by me and my IRA. Okay, KKOS Lawyers will set it up to you. It's just a multi-member LLC at that point. Your IRA owns 50% of an LLC, and you personally own 50% of an LLC. You can then act as the manager of that LLC. So when that borrower Bob comes down with a good deal, you've got money in a business checking account, $50,000 from you and $50,000 from your IRA, and your new lender now is the LLC. Whatever you name that LLC, that's the lender. So that borrower can then pay one payment to the LLC, and essentially the profits are going to be split 50-50. It's just being housed in the business checking account of the LLC. It's not required to do that, but it does simplify the process, I would say, if you're bringing in non-retirement funds. Good question.
How about one more, Nate?
Yep.
If the deed of trust takes a couple of weeks to get recorded, does that mean the deal can't be closed until the deed of trust is recorded and received?
No. I mean, if you communicate with our investments team, we often have documents that follow a couple weeks later. You're just at risk. Again, if you just make sure that it gets recorded. We're not going to stop your investment because we don't have this document or that document. What we need to deploy the funds is what I mentioned earlier. Direction investment form and a copy of the note. We do not need the deed of trust to get it out, but we do like to see the deed of trust follow it so that we can save that and that you have record of it in the event your borrower doesn't pay. All right, so I have one more case study, but I'm going to cut it short, and I'm going to make you guys this deal. If you want the full PowerPoint with the additional case study and considerations for the borrower, I want you to take my email down, okay? It's nate.hare, okay, nate.hare at directedira.com. If you want a copy of the slide deck, I'll send it to you as soon as I get back to my desk, okay? nate.hare at directedira.com. If you want to get tickets to the Alternative Asset Summit, scan that QR code and reserve your spot. Remember, it's only 300 seats, and you're going to learn a lot more about self-directed IRAs and just investing in general. Okay, a lot more than you just learned here in the last, hour and 15 minutes. And I hope this was beneficial to you guys. I'll see if you guys have some more questions here in a second, so just hang tight. And then if you need to set up accounts, okay, I've got a team of IRA account executives. Daniel's included on there. Daniel Tercey stands for Deed of Trust. That's why I had him on this program today. Okay, but if you scan that QR code, you can book a call with anybody. I suggest you get with Daniel since he's on here. And again, if you use that code Nate150, you get $150 off your first year for any account that you set up. So make sure that you guys get your account set up. The one thing that prevents people from getting money deployed, because you never know when you're going to run into a hot deal, is not having money in the account. So get the account set up. Okay, doesn't cost you much to get it set up, but we can set up your self-directed IRA in as little as 24 hours. What takes a little bit of time, which is why you want to act on this now, is it takes a little bit of time to move the money over from Fidelity or Charles Schwab. Not because we take a long time to request it, they take a long time to send it. So typically, most big custodians, if you're doing an IRA to IRA transfer, they can transfer the funds in 3 to 5 business days. But if you're working with a small advisor or say Wells Fargo, sorry Wells Fargo, I had to throw you under the bus there, or you're dealing with a 401k that you're rolling over, that could take up to 2 months sometimes. So make sure you get your account set up with one of my team members and get the initiation of the transfer or rollover started. That way you're ready to lock, load, and fire when you find a deal. So scan that QR code or go to directedira.com and click book a new account call. Let us know, guys, if this is beneficial to you guys, if you want us to bring you more content like this, if this was helpful. Again, I'm not telling everybody they need to be a private lender. There's a whole lot of investment opportunity out there in the alternative space. I like being a lender. I also do some other investments, but I hope you guys got some benefits, or at least got your mind thinking, and at least you had some takeaways that will make you a safer, more confident lender, whether it's outside of an IRA or inside of an IRA. But remember all those tax advantages you get inside of an IRA. Get Uncle Sam as the monkey off our back is the real way you get from rich to wealthy. So I hope you guys take advantage of our special promo there. So thanks for tuning in to another Directed IRA webinar. Make sure you join our newsletter. I'm assuming you guys are already in there, but make sure you attend our next webinar here in a few weeks. So thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your week.